Kevin Durant went over 30,000 points, and he did so in the third fewest games. Wilt, 941 games. Jordan, 960. So the two top scorers never really had the benefit of the three-point shot. Jordan did, but he didn't. It wasn't used the same way it is now. Wilt, of course, did not, and he wouldn't have been taking three-point shots. So Durant is in there, tied with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 1,101 games. LeBron did it in 6 more games than those two. Then it's Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, and Dirk Nowitzki. But with Kevin Durant, he is described as one of the great scorers of all time. One of the great scorers. Well, he is on the list, but out of that group, who do we say greatest scorers? He's one of the greatest scorers of all time. Jordan, we call him the best player of all time. Kareem is one of the best players of all time. LeBron, even though he'll end up with the most points in NBA history, I don't think we look at him and go, he's one of the great scorers. Karl Malone, Kobe, it almost feels like there's a disservice that Kevin Durant was one-dimensional. He's just a scorer. That's it. Now, he can score anywhere against anybody, but it almost feels like we do a disservice in how we describe Kevin Durant. Allen Iverson, great scorer, right? I think we would say that. Alex English was another player. Great scorer. Carmelo Anthony, great scorer. Kevin Durant is different than those players because Kevin Durant actually can play defense or has played defense. And I think at a couple stages in his career, averaged like 6 assists. But he's so good at one thing that you forget about all the other things. You know, Melo wasn't going to be a great passer, rebounder, defender. He was great shooter, great scorer. Kareem could do a lot of different things. LeBron could. Karl Malone, I think he was all NBA defense a few times and a rebounder. Kobe could do everything. Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk was a great scorer. Dirk would probably be in that he might be Kevin Durant before Kevin Durant as far as that guy can score. Because I don't know if I ever remember a stat line where we went, Nowitzki had 31, 13, and 7. I don't remember ever saying anything like that with Dirk Nowitzki. But he was just like Kevin Durant. You couldn't guard him. He could score on any bit, but he was a deep shooter. One of the first big men who was truly a deep shooter. And Durant can score anywhere. But I think when it's all said and done, Kevin Durant will be described as not one of the great players of all time or great all-around players. He's one of the great scorers in NBA history. And I just think he's so much more than that, but I think he's so good at that it kind of drowns out everything else. Yes. Yeah, Paulie.
Yeah, he has really good rebounding stats, block stats, steals, assists. There were seasons where he averaged 28 a game with 8 rebounds and 6 assists, plus a block and a steal. Yeah. I wonder if a guy like Durant, he's pretty intellectual and pays attention to this. Would he be bothered by just being called one of the greatest scorers?
Fritzy, get Kevin Durant on. Let me ask him. Just one question. That's all I'm going to ask him.
I think you're right. It's a slight.
Yes, Todd.
I agree that it's a slight, and someone of his sensitivity where he responds to people on social media, anything that even remotely suggests that all he really does is score a lot of points would upset him greatly.
I don't know if it's going to upset him greatly, but I think he would like to be described as one of the great players of all time, not just a great scorer. So he's the 8th player in NBA history to reach 30,000 points and did so quicker than everybody but Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain in the history of the game. But to do it in the same number of games with Kareem, who to me is the most unstoppable player in modern history. Because even Wilt, at the end of his career, when Wilt was a defender and a rebounder with the Lakers, that he thought he was going to be able to take care of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I remember the first time they met, and all of a sudden you saw that sky hook, and Wilt thought he could go up and block it. Kareem's like, I'll just toss these in, a couple of them. Yes, Marv.
And I think the big difference is with guys like Larry Bird and LeBron James, their most famous plays are like defensive plays or passes, where Kevin Durant's most famous plays are big-time shots. And that's really all he was known for because he was so great. To me, that I've ever seen, the most unstoppable offensive force, only because on every single level, he could do everything.
Yeah, it's different than Kareem. You had to get the ball to Kareem. Kevin Durant could bring it up. He could hit a jumper. He could go inside. He could post. He could do all of those things. Michael could do that as well. LeBron could do that as well. Kobe could do that as well. Nowitzki, to a certain degree, but not like Kevin Durant. Karl Malone, it just felt like Malone is always going to be attached to Stockton, and that he needed Stockton to, fast break, it's Stockton to Malone. But, 30,000 career points. Yeah, Paulie.
Kevin Durant led the league in scoring at 5 different times in his career, but he only led the league in shot attempts twice. He was not a gunner. And, for example, Kobe Bryant, he led the league in shots 6 different times in his career.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like if you're looking at economy, like an economical scorer who scored 30,000 points, I mean, it never felt like Durant was volume. Like Jordan was volume for a while. Wilt certainly was volume. Kareem, I don't know the number of shots per game for him. LeBron did everything. Karl Malone felt like volume. Kobe was certainly volume. Dirk, I guess volume. Yeah, Marv.
And the crazy thing about Kevin Durant is he has the same amount of scoring titles as Allen Iverson. Like, it's just one of those things like, wait. So probably the most impressive physical specimen as far as height and handle and all that is on par with Allen Iverson, who's the same height as I am.
Okay, but do we do a disservice to Steph Curry? Because we don't talk about being a great player, all-around player. He's the greatest shooter in NBA history. And he's one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. But you don't talk about really anything else, but that's the best shooter of all. Now, that's not a knock. If you say you're going to call me the best shooter of all time, I'll take that. But is Durant a better all-around player than Steph Curry? And I would say, yes, he is, because he's not a liability at the other end, probably an equal passer. It's just Steph is the greatest shooter of all time. I mean, I'd take that. That's pretty good. But one of the great scorers of all time for a guy like Kevin Durant, you might look at that as a little bit of a knock there. Yeah, Paul.
To me, I think Steph Curry's in his own category where he doesn't fit into others. He's maybe like Dan Marino. He changed the entire league, and he invented the deep shooting league, and Dan Marino invented pass first, run later. Maybe. I think that's a close comp.
Yeah. Is anybody else close to 30,000? What's the next closest to 30 grand? I mean, Durant's been doing. Remember when he was at Texas? And I remember the draft profiles like, oh, he's not going to survive. He's 7 feet, weighs 180. Now, he might weigh 200 now. Maybe he's put on 200 pounds. Yes, Marv.
Yeah, people were saying he couldn't bench 185 pounds. I was like, what doesn't weigh 185 pounds? A basketball.
How much that basketball weigh? I don't know. Yeah, you can hoist that up 30 times a night. Yeah, Paulie.
Active players, James Harden is at just under 27,000 points. Russell Westbrook at 26,000. Steph Curry at 25,000. Shockingly, DeMar DeRozan's at 25,000.
And you can't name a single basket.
Nice 12-footer.
Yeah. He's the guy that pulls up at the free throw line on a fast break. Old school, your coach would say, hey, make the defender come to you. Hit that pull-up jumper if you need to. Guys now, they don't hit a pull-up jumper. And DeMar DeRozan doesn't take threes either. James Harden's going to end up with 30,000 points in his career. The Russell Westbrook, because he's not a shooter. He is truly a scorer. I mean, he's a lot of different things. And he's kind of had a career resurgence here with Denver. Yes, Todd?
And then it jumps all the way down to Dame at 22,284. So he's got a ways to go to get
Yeah. Is Steph going to be around to get 30 grand?